simply saying that God exists does not mean there is one. The existence of God has been debated for centuries. Atheists deny him, or say they lack belief in God. We Christians, of course, not only believe in God but also claim to have a relationship with him through the person of Jesus Christ, who has been revealed in the 4 Gospels of the New Testament. These 4 Gospels are historical documents that tell us who he was and what he did. They let us know that he claimed to be God in flesh. Consider Exodus chapter 3 verse 14 of the Old Testament, when Moses asked God what his name was. God responded with, "I am that I am. Thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you." In John chapter 8 verse 58, Jesus said, "Before Abraham was, I am." Whatever you might think of Jesus, according to the Gospels he claimed to be God. So, if you believe Jesus, then God exists. Proving that God exists is another matter. But, you see, proof is for mathematics and logic. How do you prove there is a great being outside of our universe? Do we look for footprints in a riverbed? Do we examine evidence under a microscope and say, aha, there's God? That would be the wrong approach. If God exists, he would be beyond our universe, non-material, and transcendent. So, we would have to look for evidence that is consistent with a non-material and transcendent being. See the article Atheists Err when asking for material evidence to prove God's existence. Some have proposed that the transcendental argument for God's existence, tag, demonstrates that God exists. Others have stated that the cosmological argument is sufficient. Check out the links and judge for yourself. Whatever argument you might accept or deny, it seems that your presuppositions are what determine if you believe in God or not. Atheists, of course, presuppose that God does not exist by faith. They can't know he doesn't exist, nor can they prove that in all the universe, or outside of it, there is no God. But their atheism means they will deny any evidence or explanations used to affirm his existence. On the other hand, Christians who claim to have an encounter with God rely on the revelation of Scripture to tell them who Christ is and who God is. Could God not exist? I have to ask, how could there not be a God? Look around you. The heavens declare the glory of God. Psalm chapter 19 verse 1. Consider the vastness of the universe, the perfection of the balance of life, and the incredible complexity of the information structures in DNA. Are we to believe that the super complex information structures in the DNA molecule are the result of chance? Is life an accident? What about beauty? Is it nothing more than a chemical reaction in the brain? What about morality? Are there any moral absolutes such as, it is always wrong to torture a baby to death merely for one's personal pleasure? Or, is such a moral absolute nothing more than the result of chemical reactions in our brains? If so, how does one chemical reaction which leads to another chemical reaction produce moral absolutes or even logical absolutes? Is it easier to conclude that such truths are the result of chemical reactions in brain wiring, or that they are authored by God? Is morality merely the situational-based whims of people's preferences? Is the beauty of a sunset and the wonder of a newborn baby's precious life a byproduct of the survival of the fittest? Ask yourself if you believe that the miracle of life is produced from the purposeless motion of atoms that have led to the incredible supercomplexity of DNA. It cannot happen by chance. Ask yourself if the universal revulsion to murder is an evolutionary byproduct or an innate obligation to do what is right. If morality has absolutes, it implies an absolute moral giver. But if morality is not absolute, then everything is subjective, and there is no right and wrong. What do you think? The vast majority of people all over the world believe there is a God. But of course, that doesn't mean God exists. Still, there is something within us, something that cries out for meaning, purpose, and direction, and we naturally look to God for their fulfillment. Atheistic evolution doesn't do it. Some people have said that the reason people believe in God is that societies have brainwashed children into believing he exists. But how do we know it isn't the other way around? What if atheists are brainwashed by societies into believing that God does not exist? Which is it? Again, is our universe and our existence the product of randomness and chance, or is it the product of purpose and design? Which makes more sense when we look at beauty, purpose, morality, compassion, kindness, grace, and love? We have a tendency to know there is something beyond us because we realize that our own insufficiencies and failures cause us to reach out to something greater than ourselves. That's why we enjoy superheroes in movies and like to listen to news accounts of miraculous, selfless deeds done by normal people. There is something in us that calls out to that which is greater than we are. There is something that makes us feel bad when we lie, cheat, and steal. Why is that? Why do we have this impulse for moral truth, human greatness, truth absolutes, and personal purpose? Are they the result of cold, mechanical principles of an uncaring universe wrapped up in brain chemistry? Or are they the interweavings of the truth of God's existence that we encounter within our own souls? So, is there a God? Yes, there is. He is specifically revealed to us in the Bible, and more specifically in the person of Jesus Christ. If you want to encounter the true and living God, you'll find him revealed in the Bible. Read the Gospels that speak of Jesus. He is the representation of God in flesh. John chapter 1 verses 1, 14, Heb. 1, 1-3. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh and dwelled among us. John chapter 1 verses 1, 14. God, after he spoke long ago to the fathers in the prophets in many portions and in many ways, in these last days has spoken to us in his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, through whom also he made the world. 3 And he is the radiance of his glory and the exact representation of his nature, and upholds all things by the word of his power. Heb. 1, 1-3.